Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop, and thanks for your presentation as well. Okay, today it's about replenishment. In all of our series, this is the first time we'll be presenting this. And today I'm going to have the pleasure to present you the functionality. I'm actually, my background comes from the purchasing area. I've been working many years, not also as a consultant, but also working for purchasing departments in multinational companies. So this is my favorite topic. It's a very interesting theme to actually that I'm going to be presenting, but it's also complicated sometimes. So I'm going to just start in this half an hour or 1 hour session. I'm going to give you the basic and the most useful ideas for you to work with the replenishment module. So basically, when it comes to replenishment, we might be speaking about the manufacturing and purchasing departments as well, right? So throughout this time, we're going to be going through the entire processes. And at last, if you have any doubt as well, please send me your questions or your comments. I'm going to also be able to share the material that I have. So let's just begin now. So basically, replenishment. The main function, as you already know, includes purchasing. It's an automated process. It's via some calculations and formulations that we have to procure finished goods, raw materials for manufacturing, well, supplies in optimal quantities and in a timely manner. That's what makes this interesting. So these activities affect most areas of the company, especially inventory management, of course, but also production. And we come up with the idea of the demand when we have sales orders. So this functionality is automated and coordinate the purchasing process for the entire company if you want, or you can just for specific areas control that part of some items as well. So let's begin with the actually no more I'm not going to be focusing on theory of replenishment, since behind that we will require a specific training to review only formulations, but we nevertheless can see some examples and the tools where actually we work, right? So that's the best part. So what happened? Do you want to get started with inventory replenishment in Business Central? Well, we're going to be focusing today on the requisition management and explain the differences between two concepts, requisition management and the actual planification. You can also explore how to enter lines manually in the requisition worksheet to begin, so you can learn some of the basics. So, right, what do? We calculate the current and detailed purchases order plans, all right? We create the actual purchases. We manage, I'm going to explain the concept of stock keeping units. So in different warehouses, for those of you, or stores, for those of you who have them, you have different store or warehouse capacities. So they are very important for us now, all right? So the idea is to design a purchase order process for all the areas in the application and to be able to actually control the flow of relevant information between our departments so the planning functionality in the requisition worksheet can work. So we have basically two worksheets which we're going to be using today, but first is a requisition where we purchase, but we have, just to have an idea, related replenishment application for manufacturing. Okay, so they differ in that the requisition worksheet plans for items that are replenished via purchase and transfers, whereas the planning worksheet includes planning for all items, including manufacturing goods. So with this basic idea, by the end of the webinar, you will be able to set up requisition management in Bit Central. We're going to be focusing on that first. Understand the difference between the requisition worksheet and the planning worksheet for manufacturing. Enter lines manually in the requisition just to begin and start learning, and then set up item vendors, create purchase orders from this requisition process. So Let's begin now with the requisition worksheet. And what is this? A requisition worksheet, you first must set up a requisition worksheet template in Dynamics 365. This is the place where we actually make the initial replenishment process for purchasing. You can set two different types of requisition. The first one is non-recurring and the other recurring. You can use recurring worksheet templates when you have entries that must be converted to purchase order repeatedly with only a few or no changes. So instead of going and explaining what is replenishment, this is for more advanced users that already work with a Business Central or NAV. You already know how to purchase, and this is more or less an advanced topic, all right? So for the first time, we're gonna be opening a recurring journal and start working on that immediately. So this is the actual Business Central client. And what I want to do here is just start configuring the requisition worksheet where we are going to be actually creating this automated process, all right? So in the requisition worksheet template, this is the place where we're actually going to be doing. You can create many templates where we are going to be working the document where we actually make the replenishment and we calculate our inventory to create purchase orders. What does this template does? First of all, we create the name, and then a description for the requisition or a worksheet. This is a document where we actually calculate and review, make any Business Central to review the demand for us. So the idea is to create first of all, any templates. Let's think of, let me show you here. We have created three documents to begin. The requisition worksheet in the first line, the second recurring requisition worksheet, and at last but not least, planning worksheet. And if you can see, I have clicked on the recurring checkbox that you can see in the third column. What is this? I have created three documents. And if you can create a document for the administration department, another in this case for planning manufacturing, a requisition worksheet for purchasing, or with the name of your user if you want, so you can start generating first your templates, so you can then set up and we can then review the core functionality. So the whole idea is that once we create our journals, let's just try to understand once again the difference. We have two types of journal templates. The main difference between these two worksheets is that the planning worksheet typically is used by manufacturing companies. You can calculate a plan for the following replenishment system: requisition worksheet, purchase, and transfers. So the first document in this gray line that I have here in this sheet, the requisition worksheet is help us to purchase and transfer. So once we work with that type of document, we can generate purchases and transfers to any vendor, to any item, and also receiving and make it an automated process to transfer to the specific area where we want, if we have multiple locations. And second, planning worksheet here in the yellow line can help us to generate as well our purchases, our transfer orders, and our production orders to be created, as well as assembly orders. What I'm saying here is that we have to type, one is connected only to, and is going to review the requisition worksheet, is only review the item levels. So we're going to be speaking about first of all, the basic concept of any replenishment process is how much you internally, you know, for those, how much stock you want in your company, in your experience. So as well, we are going to be working with the demand. So it depends of how many sales orders we have. And at last but not least, we might have sales budgets. All of those, the demand, let's call it, work with the requisition worksheet. Difference between both of them is that in the planning worksheet, or in the second document in the yellow line, the demand comes from internally the manufacturing department or light manufacturing where we just assemble. Why? Because in the second one, we might have bill of materials, with specific or formulations. For those of you who work with mixtures when we also only want to work with a very basic type of lean manufacturing, we call it just assembly orders. So while you are selling one item, you have just a few components, and yes, we also need to order all of those, right? So if you, we have one very important function. Both of them have one function that is calculate plan, okay? In the orange square here, if you use the calculate plan batch from the planning worksheet page to calculate the replenishment plan, the program can suggest purchase order, transfer, and production orders and transfer orders as well. So that's the only difference for you to have the basic idea. And then we have one last action when once we calculate our plan, we are going to see in our document how many items do we need to replenish. Then we can carry out action messages. That's a function to say before you actually prepare any document, what a Business Central or the design of Business Central is as follows. We generate and we calculate our plans, but it's still in general just a suggestion for you to work. But you still can manually update or rearrange some specific suggestions. So at last, then you will be using a function called carry out action messages to copy, purchase, and transfer order suggestions from the planning worksheet to the requisition worksheet. In that case, you can separate production orders from the purchase order or to the transfer orders, right? So the general idea is that in your company, especially let's talk about a multi-site company, you have a main warehouse, but you might have secondary warehouses or locations like stores where you also have stock. So in order to replenish properly, we receive in one warehouse some specific items, and then we transfer to the other locations where we're going to be either stocking or most commonly selling. So we are saying in this example that we have a network of a supply chain, basically, right? So for you to get how do we are actually going to work, I'm going to try, and the way I have designed this process is just work with one item to actually be able to focus on the actual information. Because if I input the actual requisition could be and could include thousands of items actually, then we could get lost easily in that part. So when it comes to replenishment, it's better to work with few to understand, and then it can apply then to many items then. All right, so how it works. In the requisition worksheet, you list all the items that you want to order. You can enter items in the requisition worksheet in many ways. First of all, manually. That's how we're gonna be working first. Then calculate your plan. So it's that function, calculate plan, is going to review all the items and all the demand to then give you a proposal. Last, carry out action messages is when you actually are sure about that the suggestions are correct, and then you prepare those orders. Then we have two special functions, but those are just for some specific cases: drop shipment and special order. Drop shipment would be when you are not going to receive in your warehouse or on premises on any of your locations, but directly to your customer, from the vendor to the actual customer, all right? Then we have special orders. We also have this function when we are going to request specific items that could be or could include some special requirements, such as assembly. All right, just to mention some basic concepts. So in order to work with this, I'm just going to show this requisition worksheet in first place for you to have these concepts and see how it work, so you can memorize them and see them working in an easy way. So Let's work, first of all, with the requisition worksheet. This is the first exercise we're going to review. I recommend you also to review some manuals where we're going to have more explanation. But in order to start working with our first example, I'm going to open for you a requisition worksheet and start working immediately with it. So I have two generated requisition worksheets already. So this is it. Okay, this is the document where we work. First of all, I can order items and GL accounts, only in the manual way, all right? Then if I have selected items, I'm just going to pick a one random item for you to see that I know that currently has a requisition setups. What we can do here is generate documents, new, change quantities, reschedule orders, and so on. Many options we have. I'm selecting new, so I'm going to input. I have just called my sales department, and they, or in the warehouse, they have told me just, hey, I just need 20 pieces of the packing armchair in the south warehouse. And I'm going to review the due dates for the documents, all right? So I also have a vendor, and the replenishment process, in this case, I have purchase, transfer, assembly, or production orders. This is it, basically, just to begin. So I'm just purchasing from a specific vendor, 3,000, and basically, because I have already spoken, I could also, well, because to my user to create a purchase order, right? But what I wanted to do in first place with this example is to show you how replenishment works, right? So that's why I'm just including one line only, not using a purchase order directly to input this, but to review the item itself. A quantity on hand, I have currently 210 pieces. But the most important things come here. I have some setups for the replenishment module. Here, the replenishment system is purchasing. The lead time calculation for my vendor is 2 weeks, and the vendor is the 3,000 for this a specific item, all right? So the purchasing unit of measure is included here. And so I can then, remember, suggest all of this process. Also, if I'm gonna work with assembly, is also set up here, but in this case, as you can see, this item is not an assembly item. Then you can see that I have my vendor, but this doesn't, this is not limited only to one vendor. So let's remember that this is purchasing. I always work with costs, so I need to negotiate with many vendors, and I have included a list of possible vendors for my specific item. I also have the vendor item number and a lead time calculation. In this case, is 3 weeks, 3W. So these vendors that are also options for me are slower than the 2 weeks vendor that I have. So that's all. For me, if I want to then make the process to work automatically for me, I have just inputted one document, one line, and then the system is going to review everything for me. And I'm just going to click on OK, and the system is going to automatically create a purchase order. Behind all of this, there are plenty of other calculations, like not only the lead time. I know that I need to receive an item in the following 2 weeks. Well, that's what I expect, but also the quantity that I requested. And in this case, look how the requisition worksheet is lined, and I have printed just my purchase order. This has created in the South warehouse a specific purchase order, right? And received by 31st of October, so today. So this is also including the total of my invoice amounts calculated and so on. So as you can see, this is quite more easy when it comes to generating a purchase order. So I have just included my item, the quantity, and that's all. Then the vendor came up automatically. The system reviewed the quantity that I requested, and also it included the specific warehouse from where I actually just received everything. And by just pressing calculate and carry out messages, the order was created. So if I work with a 100 purchase orders, and I don't have to create them anymore manually. So this is the first step that I just want to show. Now, anyway, remember, this is replenishment. This is an automated process. It's all about quantities and time. So with this, I'm going to go to the second part. The second step is to work and understand the calculated inventory. So for me, I have, instead of going through the theory of what do we do, I'm going to create just one exercises and immediately go to the specific, one of the most used examples for the, at least for in the implementations where I have been working, so you can have a good idea of what we're going to do. First of all, we are going to work with one of our items. I'm going to be the purchaser agent, and I'm going to set up the planning parameters for one item. Is the 1925 W item. Okay, this is just another item that I have just selected. Then I'm going to go and open the replenishment. I'm going to use the replenishment system to purchase, and by looking at one reordering policy that is called fixed reorder quantity. So we are going to jump directly into the use of the system with a reorder point of 100 and a reorder quantity of 150. If you have already worked in a, or if you don't have yet work with this, well, you're going to need, in first place, to understand the inventory levels. First two concepts is that normally we work with fixed order reorders. So when you already have some experience of at least the majority, some of your items that you often request on a, let's talk about clothing, the white t-shirt, the black shoes, or if we talk about electronics, well, you already know that in your portfolio you have the best cell phone, so you already know how many you should be ordering. So we use then this replenishment method. Then we use a reorder point. That could be then for me the advice that in my experience I need to give to the system, help me reordering whenever I go below this quantity. And reorder quantity is just how many do I should order per purchase order. Basically just that, because the item is a high volume product, remember that, all right? You set the time bucket for the item at 1 week. Remember these two concepts. So high volume products are the first that I should be including when I start learning replenishment. And I have these specific policies, okay? So a fixed reorder quantity. Then time bucket, it comes in handy for my calculation for the horizon that I want to be reviewing. In this case, let's try to work with 1 week. I'm gonna be working every week to start replenishment, and that's the way I'm gonna tell the system. I work on a weekly basis to work with the automated process, right? Then, what happens when I have set up this a high volume product? Of course, I'm gonna start working with it. So I'm gonna start receiving demand. In the green square, I'm gonna receive a first sales order for the item from customer 3000. So the customer orders in the future 70 units, which are due on November 20. So almost in the third part of the following month. So what should I do? Okay, I know that I have an inventory capacity, but for the inventory levels. But remember, you also have demand that is going to be coming, right? And also I'm including some dates for you to start learning that throughout in the future, maybe in 1 or 2 weeks, I need to have this inventory on premises. Then what I need to understand is that first I set up my items, I immediately can start receiving sales order. Basically, it's just that, remember that. So once I have those inputs, then I go into calculate plan requisition worksheet for the item in question for today, all right? Or before going to work with that, with the requisition, make your inputs and work. I recommend you to work with 1 week or 2 weeks at most. Otherwise, the replenishment process would be just a cumbersome or a problem or a bottleneck, all right? So this is a very fast process. So basically that. What I'm gonna do also, pay attention to this, with all this information, I need to give the system another feature. I'm going to let him know, let Business Central know that please go and review the entire November month. So that will be the horizon, and I'm gonna make him take a look at the entire month for my items to make the suggestions. So working with a time bucket of 1 or 2 weeks is just a suggestion for me to know that, hey, give me my purchase orders to work, so the system can make the specific calculations and create maybe a one purchase order for this first week. The time bucket also could be creating, if the time bucket is 1 week, it's going to create orders every week in the future. One for this week, a second one for the second week, a second one for the another purchase order for the third week, and so on. So time bucket is one concept of how to slice and dice the functionality to create on a timely basis specific documents. But the requisition worksheet also have as an horizon. So I'm gonna tell him to work for and look for the entire month of November, all right? Many concepts, but I don't wanna go in a very theoretical way, just understand a basic example. Now with this, I'm gonna start working with Business Central. When I just go into requisition worksheet for the first time, I need to know that everything will be calculated, all right? So first of all, I have said that I'm going to be including the capacity of my warehouse. That's the first input for one specific item, which will be the 125. Review your warehouses and review how many pieces you can handle for, in this case, one specific a period. Remember that I will be working with 1 week. Now, currently, I don't have for this item inventory. This is the first time, so that's fine. That's the unit of measure pieces. And look at the pictures, blah, blah, blah. You have already all the setups. This is FIFO, the unit cost. Very important to have it before going to the actual replenishment process. Okay, so let's pay attention. We have all the setups. I strongly recommend to review the items before you start replenishment. Now, replenishment is, like I said, currently has most of all the lead time calculation, the purchase, and the vendor, okay? This is the first setup you do. So you can create and indicate the system what when you purchase, which vendor you're gonna use. Now, the first reordering policy I'm gonna be using is a fixed reorder quantity. The reorder point will be 100, meaning that the system knows when to replenish and reorder quantity 150. So this is because he's going to start creating purchase orders with 150 pieces for that vendor. And the time bucket, like we said, is 1 week. Every week I want to replenish again and again and again. So create purchase orders, let's say for every Thursday. Remember those concepts. And the first and easiest reordering policy is just fix. Just take a look at my levels, take a look at how many orders and how many items I can handle. So that's the first input. But when I also work with replenishment, I need to understand the demand a concept where in first place, remember, I work with the sales orders, but also I could have manufacturing. In this case, I'm not going to include manufacturing, that's more advanced. But for now, is the sales order coming from a customer, right? And it's very important now. Work with the sales orders, and you're gonna have some messages sometimes. In this case, these customers owe some money to the company. Now, once you also work with this, it's very important to ask your customer. This is super important. This is part of the new implementation of when you work with the replenishment, the due dates, the order date, when you want to receive inventory. This is important for calculations, right? Remember that I'm not going to review the formulations today. That's the most advanced topic in replenishment, but today I'm going to be requesting for a November 8th. Well, the requested delivery date is the one that the replenishment process actually reviews. So work with your days when you should receive. That's part of the new demand calculation. And now, well, part of the sales order process is just including items. So that's what I'm doing now. In the sales order section, I'm just going to include for the main warehouse where I'm in my company multi-site, I just received my inventory. So as you can see here, I have another message. I don't have enough inventory to attend the demand. That's why, and we need to understand what we do here. I'm going to be now releasing the order. That's the part of the standard sales order functionality. So basically, once it's released, the replenishment process can actually see the demand. If you don't do it, then you're gonna, this sales order is not gonna be part of the requisition, right, worksheet, or the demand features, variables to be included in the input calculate for the calculations for my requisition worksheet, all right? So I have just opened once again the requisition worksheet. I'm not going to include any more manual information. I'm going to use the calculation or calculate plan batch job. First of all, I'm going to need to include my starting and ending date for my horizon. Even though I know that I work on a weekly basis in my bucket, I want this to review in the future 4 weeks or the entire month. So you can also filter by warehouses if you want, or items. And let's take a look at the actual suggestion by the system. So first of all, let's take a look. It has requested 150 pieces of the item and has created, it has ordered a new purchase order with 150 pieces. This is a suggestion, and also to attend the demand of the sales order, because I need to satisfy my inventory level plus the actual demand of the sales order. Now, after I have done that, I can carry out a message. Remember that the message is new. Okay, very, very important. So this is going to create new documents. And by clicking on carry out messages, I'm just going to click on OK. This is now empty again with a very easy calculation with just two variables. But remember, you will be having all your warehouses who suggested, all your sales order from all the customers suggested to attend the demand. But basically, these are the two basic variables coming from sales orders and from the inventory levels in your warehouse. Now, I'm going to open my item again. And you can see that I have now items on quantity, or I have quantity on purchase orders. 2 purchase orders were created from the calculation plan for the same item, conference bundle, and ordered to the main warehouse. And the first purchase order is requesting 150 pieces. And I have no reservations, and the other one for 70 pieces, okay? You can include serials number, lot numbers, that could be then included here. Let's review. Well, just pay attention that you have that, and we currently don't have the direct unit cost. Very important to know. We are not yet working with the cost, because that will be coming when we invoice. We still need to receive these purchase orders. And let's review the most important thing, the expected receipt date. When I created a sales order, well, the sales order expected was for November the 8th. In the second line, you can see the expected receipt date. And also, in this case, the first document is expected to be received on the 6th of November, 2 days before the actual demand that I'm actually going to be receiving. So those are the type of features that with the lead time calculation, Business Central review. First, give me my inventory, and 2 days later, I can attend the demand. Why? Because I know in advance that in the warehouse, I need 2 days to actually stock all the received inventory. Basically that, all right? I'm not gonna go at this point with more complexity. You have seen how the requisition worksheet works. We have attended quantities for the actual levels that I requested and the sales demand coming from a sales order, not a manufacturing one. And we have seen the first suggestion to create new documents to the main warehouse. Basically, it's just that, right? Now, what happened then later when I do normally when I implement system? I have been seeing that for the first time, you could request more purchase orders than one you actually can handle. All right. Why? Because in this case, as you can see, the order is for 150 pieces. That's the norm. Maybe the purchaser is thinking of having the lowest cost always. All right. So it's preferable to order many pieces. But what is going to happen here? Every time I need and I go below 100, that was my my actual reorder point. Once again, the system is going to order 150. That might be sometimes quite much, too much inventory sometimes. So what happened if I don't want to work with these big blocks? All right, let's go to the second example and try to correct my idea of the capacity of my warehouse. Yes, I know that I still need to order the majority of the items per purchase order, but at the same time, I have capacity in my warehouse. What happened then in that example? Okay, obviously we need to correct the actual quantities, and this is for the first time we are actually system helps you, right? It actually helps us actually to correct. Request mostly the warehouse storage capacities, even though our planification is correct. So even though we are planifying correctly, we have inputted everything fine, with the time we're gonna be learning. And here, instead of using now only the reorder point, I'm gonna use another way of replenishment. So better, to feed our necessities, we need to prioritize our storage capacity. So in our warehouses or the stores, you decide to change the reorder policy for the same item to maximum quantity and set the maximum inventory level at 200. And then once again, calculate the plan. What happened here? All right, I know that I cannot handle any more big orders of 150 pieces. So be careful, don't don't request more than you can actually handle. So this is when maximum quantity comes in handy, just for you to actually take the idea for the first time where you are learning how to replenish. What's coming? What's the next thing we need to do? Okay, I know that I have capacity in my warehouse, and I know that currently I have 220 pieces coming, but I don't want to replenish too much, all right? So it's very important to start looking. For those of you who actually work with this manually, you might have already this idea, this is happening, all right? So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna correct then my specific requirement, currently working with this reorder point idea, but in the actual the actual necessity is to also take a look at the capacity of the warehouse. So I'm going to look at the maximum inventory instead. But take a look, I have already requested some orders. So I realize that I cannot handle more than 200 because I need another item or more offers or I have a campaign to sell some specific items. So I have warehouse constraints, 200 pieces in this example. Okay, so let's go back to the requisition worksheet again, and let's try to recalculate for the same item. So once again, my starting and ending date is there for the same month, November. But remember, I have created purchase order. I'm gonna click on recalculate the plan, and what has happened here? For me, the system also helps me to correct. So the first order for 150 pieces is just canceled. And in this example, I don't have to manually go again and cancel all the orders and everything. So NAB Business Central is going to help me doing so as well. And it's going to create a new document for the actual necessity. That is 200 in the main warehouse, right? So this is the maximum inventory that I can handle in my warehouse. That's why this example is very important for you to know that Business Central helps you also to correct when you change your necessities. And guess what? It helps you not only to correct, delete documents and create new documents. It also can review your quantities. It can also just review or rearrange for in the future different dates to receive your items. Because remember that we work with a 1 week bucket. So why not to stop ordering in the first week and go and reschedule for the following week when you have more capacity? So now, in this case, because I work with a maximum capacity, first order that was requested was for 200, and still I have a demand for 70 pieces to be delivered on the following week of November. But this means that after I have reviewed my actual necessities, this is most of the time what is going to happen if you work with maximum inventory. You are always going to have that inventory, and it's going to be decreasing. And if you work on a weekly basis, then you go and review the following Thursday to once again have those 200 again. But you also might be having a lot of sales orders, okay? So get the concept. NAB is going to review the inventory levels that you might have and also attending the demand for your sales order. This is again specifically for those type of items that are quite fixed. This is the white shirt, this is the black shoes. In the supermarket, this might be your fruits or veggies, where you have some specific shelves where you actually manage, right? Some especially if you work with also WMS, right? Now, what happened? Some of you have LS retail. All right, I'm not gonna cover at this point. That might be another topic that I could come in the future. I'm gonna design another webinar for LS retail, because guess what? A store replenishment is another, using some more or less the same idea of calculating, review the periods, review inventory levels in some cases, but in LS retail, we might have seasons, we might have specific variants, we might have packages where you want, for instance, the cell phone that we were saying, okay, for this example, we might be ordering only the black, okay, the black item is always ordered, or the white item for clothing is always ordered. But for LS retail, you might order the medium, the large, the extra large, a shirt, and with different colors and styles, so it has more variables. So for now, we're going to stop with this basic requisition idea of the maximum inventory. You see how it works. You saw the previous one where we have just the reordering policy to have the reordering quantities. So now you get the idea of when to work with this, how to use it, and how NAB helps you not only to order, but also to correct. Now let's go to another explanation. And this is, let's go to actually the most used and the most common policy to work with replenishment, which is lot for lot. What happens here? If you want to plan items that typically are part of your regular inventory, so this is lot for lot reordering policy with the lot for lot, and this is triggered by the demand, which can be, for example, your sales order. If you want to combine the demand for a specific period into one lot, you typically will use the lot for lot reordering policy with the lot accumulation period field. You can specify a period in which multiple demands are accumulated into one supply order when you use lot for lot reordering policy. If you enter 1 week, for example, the program will combine all the requirements in 1 week into one replenishment process, okay? So you have seen the requisition worksheet. You know that it creates new order. It also helps you to correct when you are wrong. And what happened with the lot for lot policy? Well, This is basically is going to be focusing more on the demand sales orders, basically. So it's going to review all your sales orders. It's going to review at the same time when you have incoming purchase orders, right? So what happened here? In first place, we were only reviewing what is the inventory level. Basically just that. Now in the lot for lot policy, we are not going to review only the inventory level, but we're going to be focusing on the sales orders that you having through a time. So this is at the same time required to have a period for accumulating, let's say, for those items that you are not purchasing on a weekly basis, okay? That is most commonly in the purchasing department, a common periodicity to work on a weekly basis. But these are some items that, that are not fast, maybe medium, they are not fast moving, they are not runners, all right? But anyway, you will need to still replenish some items. So let's take a look better at the actual customer's demands instead. I don't want to work with inventory levels all the time to have specific volumes. But anyway, I still need to attend the demand, and this is how instead you will be using the lot for lot policy, all right? So same tools, but just one change of variable, and you get the idea of what then the system is going to be looking at. Then another type of, this is another policy to work with replenishment. This is a reorder policy by order, right? It's more or less like lot for lot, but in this case, you use the order reordering policy for items that typically aren't part of your regular inventory, all right? With the order reordering policy, however, the program creates an order to link that acts as a preliminary connection among the supply and a supply order or an inventory and the demand that is going to fulfill. So we have two concepts. The dampener period specifies a period during which you don't want a planning system to propose rescheduling existing supply orders to a future date. Safety lead time specifies a day's formula to indicate a safety lead time that can be used as a buffer period for production and other delays. So what is this? Let me give you a very basic explanation, easy to understand. Sometimes you work with manufacturing, or well, all the demand, but what you are actually going to see is just the order that you currently have as a demand, all right? So this will be including all the sales order and production orders that are currently released. Basically that is the actual demand. It's only looking at that. It's going to review the sales orders that the user create, the purchase orders that are actually created as well, or well, released. And it's going to then take a look, okay, this is the real and only the real demand that I have from my customers or my manufacturing department. So I'm just going to order specifically what is the real and only the real demand. That's why this is called the reorder policy, all right? Because I only work with that. Now, I have these basic concepts, which are the four main policies for Business Central to replenish. And we should go now with plenty of examples, right? Exercises, basically. With these just basic concepts, you can now review your items, change the policies, when it applies, change the inventory levels when you need them, if you want to work with maximum or just with some specific reordering a number of units. So you can play with those and see how the system actually works. Specifically, the most important, don't forget to work with your bucket and to work with your horizon when you actually replenish, because this is a very common mistake when we do implementations. You order in the future, for instance, for 6 months, because You're thinking, I need to make a planification for the following 6 months, but remember, this we need to make a differentiation. We also have a budgets, a sales budgets, where you can planify your future demand. I have covered in other webinars the budgeting for sales and purchasing departments, and yes, the functionality to review those. But the actual worksheet, when we come with the horizon, is going to create the actual purchase order. So there's a different planification is not done here. Okay, the actual planification is done with the budget, sales budgets. The actual planification is done in your maximum inventory capacities or reordering quantities when you know them, all right? So this is just the basics. But when you work with the policies and you work with all the policies that I have just explained, is going to be the idea of working on a weekly basis to actually create your orders, all right? So let's go then and actually review that part. Okay, this is just concept, this is just review the fields and so on. But the idea here is that I need to actually really understand the planification, okay? More than the concept, I need to know that I work with many warehouses, and what should I do? In different warehouses, I have different levels, I have different demand, I have in the north of a country, in the south, and so on. So if you understand the basic concepts, then you need to extend your knowledge to understand that in the real work, you work in a multiple site environment with where you need to take specific actions. Let's try to then understand how what are the features for you to understand it at the demand planning. First of all, the planning system is driven by anticipated and actual customer demand, very important, such as forecasts, like I have mentioned, and sales orders, which is the actual demand. Then run the planning calculation, and the application will suggest the user to take specific actions that may include getting supply from vendors, assembly, or manufacture your items. So for different departments, okay? So it will be then coming more variables and making transfers as well. So you can receive in one warehouse and then transfer, and the system is going to help you to create all of this information. If you want to manufacture, purchase your pieces and receive them in the main warehouse, but also transfer to the manufacturing department. This is the actual planification. Now, the second point is suggest actions could be to create new supply orders, such as purchase or production orders. If supply orders already exist, then the suggested actions could be used to increase or expedite the orders to meet the changes in the demand. That happens very often, all right? So it's not only about give me new orders to create. The actual replenishment process is actually going to review and correct when you are wrong, right? Because you have a lot of variables. Now, we need to understand, just at last but not least, the stock keeping unit concept for the basic replenishment process, right? So the planning parameters can also be defined, but for a combination, remember this, of item, variant, and location by setting up a stock keeping unit for each needed combination and then specify individual parameters. Okay, this is complex concepts. Each warehouse has specific storage capacities and follows a planning direction, okay? So what is stock keeping unit? In order to avoid these complex explanations for people who has already experience, if you're just looking at this for the first time, and we need to focus on the following. We have inventory, a supply flow, okay? Starting from in this specific figure, we have from the right to the left, we have main warehouse where we receive the goods. Then we also can reserve, if you already know how to reserve in NAV, that's possible in combination with the actual process, okay? So if you have inventory and you have reservations, you want to actually keep some inventory is not stock levels. This is reserve inventory for some orders. And this doesn't mean that is the actual supply for your demand or new demand. This is reserved for some customers, okay? So let's pay attention to that. So then we need to transfer the goods to these pink and red warehouses that you can see in the left. I have a red warehouse from where I'm going to be shipping to customers, okay? What happened here? In one place, I'm going to be receiving, then create transfer orders, and to transfer to the shipping area in the final warehouse where I create the sales order. That's the flow. Though also, I have, this is, well, the plan direction that I have. But what happened? In the main warehouse, I might have some capacities to control some specific maximum inventory or reorder capacity, or in this warehouse, I don't even create sales orders, all right? So I just receive the purchases. So I need to indicate the system that for some items that I want to replenish, I will be receiving in the main warehouse only, all right? And then for the other warehouses, don't make purchase orders to receive in those warehouses. Those might be internal warehouses, all right? For instance, in a multi-site manufacturing department, you have other warehouses where you actually just stock your spare parts or your raw materials or your a bill of materials components where you actually just handle that. Okay, so you just transfer between those warehouses or stores. For those of you who manage supermarkets, let's say, you just transfer goods from your main warehouse. So that's the idea. Replenishment process generates a stock keeping unit saying, oh, in this specific warehouse, I only receive transfer orders. Don't never purchase. Just receive transfer orders, and you can have in that second or multi-site warehouses different inventory levels, and basically, and also you might have different reordering policies, the ones that we have studied with basic examples, right? So that is the actual replenishment idea for you to plan. You work with manufacturing, with purchasing, with multiple warehouses, and for all of them, you are going to create according to your planning direction, purchases and transfer orders. Now, let's try to create a stock keeping unit for our item for you to take the idea of this basic first replenishment lesson. Okay, the same item that I created is receiving basically the main warehouse from the calculations that we saw before. And today I'm gonna have the necessity to sell from another warehouse, okay? So I'm gonna create a stock keeping, and I have a unit and I have the location idea. This is going to be creating a stock keeping unit for another location that is not going to be the main warehouse. And in this case, I have some setups that I need to do for my item, and specifically, most important is which warehouse you're going to be then setting up for the item. Okay, this is the south warehouse. I'm gonna click on OK, and I'm gonna set up for the south a warehouse that I have. I need to say, okay, I know that in the first warehouse I created some setups, but now in the south warehouse I need to also replenish that warehouse because that's a warehouse I might be using to sell. All right. So let's take a look at the configuration. Once again, is the location code south, and I have a bill of materials more related to manufacturing, all right? So I will be handling here my spare parts because this is an assembly item that I could be working with, okay? Now, in this case, I don't receive from any vendor any stock. I just transfer from the main warehouse. Right? The lead time calculation is none because once I have inventory, immediately send it to the actual warehouse. So in this case, let's take a look at this. I have an error because I have inputted from the transfer from code field. I'm telling the system, in order to receive to the south warehouse, send me my stock from the main warehouse. This is what I'm saying here, but this is giving me an error. What is going on? In order to understand the last setup, you need to understand for replenishment, you need to create your network for transfer routes. So I need to indicate the system. I have a route to I need to create a path. So I have forklifts, I have people working in the different multi-site warehouses, but I need to tell the system how am I going to be replenished with transfer orders from the main to the south warehouse. Well, it depends. If you have internal warehouses in one side, like manufacturing companies, where they have multiple warehouses with different spare parts, well, let's just create a transfer route with our own internal logistics. But what happens if I'm moving inventory to the other part or in another geographical area? I might be using DHL or another FedEx or another company that is going to help me to actually make the actual process. So between the main in this matrix, if you take a look at the row main and the column south, I'm telling that I will be using between those two warehouses, you have two options, own logistics or outsourced logistics. And if you're going to be working with also DHL, FedEx, own logistics, UPS as an example, when their warehouse is maybe too far from the main warehouse and you need some external providers or suppliers to help you with that transfer order, all right? So basically, also with this type of configuration is still basic. You need to understand that not all the warehouse will be transferring stock between each other. In this case, I have set up that I have a new route for the south department, and where I receive my items are coming from the main department. Now, what happened in the south new setup? Okay. I know that in the main warehouse from my previous exercise, I have maximum inventory. But now, since this is the south department warehouse, this is a new warehouse from where I'm selling. Well, I want to handle this, all my inventory that I will be selling for this item that is a fast item. 500 is the maximum inventory in the south warehouse. So I have set up two different warehouses to keep my inventory, but in one I will be receiving and in the other one with the same policy. I wanted to use the same policy, maximum quantity, for you to make it easier to understand the stock keeping unit calculation, all right? So let's go and review what's gonna happen. Just to finalize with the basic concepts, I'm just going to then run again I'm going to run my actual planification now with this stock keeping unit, just for you to take the idea to finalize the webinar for today. So I'm going to be having more webinars about replenishment. I believe that I need at least two or two more just to give you the full idea, and maybe one or two for retail replenishment, all right? But you need to actually learn these concepts about stock keeping units, multi-site warehousing, and so on, all right? Now, what I'm gonna do is, once I have included my requisition criteria to work with stock keeping units, so one item is replenished to two warehouses. Now I'm gonna go back to my requisition worksheet and go and calculate the plan again. Remember, starting and ending date, once again, for November. You can use forecasts, like I said, coming from the sales budget, not included in this webinar, in this topic. Now, once I have calculated, Business Central is now working with this formulation or this suggestion, all right? It's going to cancel the first requisition for 200 pieces, and now is sending an actual, let's focus on the two lines. It just canceled the previous orders, because before we only have one warehouse. Now we have two to supply. So it has requested, because I have already inventory, or a purchase order was already requested for the main warehouse. But now I have included another 500 pieces to be requested for the main warehouse, but then transfer to the purchase, and then transfer in the first in the south immediately after I purchase, I have a due date. So first purchase and then create a transfer order to the south warehouse, as you can see here. So that's what would be happening normally, all right? And let's take a look. We can create new, change quantities, reschedule orders, reschedule not and quantity at the same time. And in this example, that is quite drastic, just cancel the orders that I have, right? That is very important then to understand also the due dates, okay? I need to carry out messages before the due date because the people working in here also have their own capacities. The vendors have a lead time. Also, you have internal warehousing handling time. So at this point, with those suggestions, I'm just going to be clicking on OK to actually just create my orders, okay? So this has created just 500 pieces to be ordered to one warehouse. And then, well, behind the scene, all of this was created. But if I take a look at the purchase the order list or the transfer order list, then all the orders were generated in advance. So now the warehouses need to attend the orders that you created. They don't see this functionality, they will only see the orders already created, right? So this is how then NAB help you with the actual work. And it's always, since we work with maximum inventory, is going to help you to maintain the specific level and then later all the demand with the sales orders that you create. Then also the forecasts. Remember, go to the budgeting webinar that we have in the past for you to know. It is also included here. Now, the most important here for me to show you today is some basic concepts for you to learn, because we're going to use them in further webinars. And let's remember, what can we do with the requisition worksheet? This is this concept you need to learn. First of all, create a new order from scratch, my new items. Then change quantity, the recommendations to change the quantity on an existing order. Why? What is going to happen here? Change quantity. This is a very dynamic process. You are going to be receiving further and in the future more sales orders. So yes, you have replenished with the current information that you have, but what happened if in the following weeks you receive more sales orders that will be actually happening oftenly? Well, this is going to be helping us to change the quantities in our purchase orders. Until when? Well, we need to understand that once we have requested to a vendor, we need to release the order, and then it's going to start sending the inventory, right? But we still can change the quantity requested. It's not a problem for us. Either adding a new line in a previous purchase order, or if it's not possible, then remember, you can adjust manually, and why not change the action message to change quantity to new to create a new order if you want. Then reschedule, recommendation to reschedule an existing order. Okay, this comes in handy when we actually receive a call from one of our customer to change the actual delivery date. So if you know that is actually happening, change your requested date in the sales order, and then rerun the specific calculation in the requisition worksheet to then make the notification, and you're going to receive from Business Central the action message to reschedule. Now, if everything changes, that actually happens all the time, reschedule and reschedule quantity is the first option. Recommendation to reschedule and change the quantity on an existing order. What happened here? Your customer doesn't require anymore some items, doesn't require sometimes, or they have returns. They know that you might be creating a sales orders already, but somehow they might be having issues with the previous items. They call you to provide more, but for urgent sales orders they have requested in the future, in 1 month, maybe for December even, they place a sales order, but they don't suddenly realize that they were committing a mistake and they will be needing in advance the inventory for December to be requested in November. So if you do that, a NAV Business Central is not only going to reschedule, but also maybe change your quantities to be supplied because you also have some constraints, okay? So Business Central takes a look at all of these features for you to remember. And last is just cancel. Well, it means that just a release order should be just reordered in order, like we saw before. It happens because sometimes it is not possible to use a purchase order because it was sent already to the vendor. The vendor might be already be working with something. So let's cancel it, okay? If it has an issue, let's just cancel the order and reorder it again, okay?